everyone. Welcome to Canvas and Cookies. We are going to be doing the fox painting today, and I do have an assistant, Andrew Henkels, who will be helping me to keep pace for all of you guys out there to make sure that I go not too fast and not too slowly. All right, let's get started. You should have your paints that you received with the kit. This is my palette, and you should also have a mixing plate. So go ahead and get your mixing plate out, because the first thing that we're gonna do is make orange. Now remember, we have 3 rules here at Spirited Art. The first one is that this is totally your painting. So if you wanna do the background of the fox a different color, that's completely up to you. And if you wanna change anything about the apple or the acorns, again, that's up to you. Your imagination and creativity may make this painting look different than mine, and that's great. All right, but for the orange, take your big brush, get all that water out. You can even tap it on your napkin so we're not dripping. And we're gonna take a big scoop of yellow, put that on your mixing plate, a little corner of red. Red is a very powerful color, so you don't need much. And then I'm also gonna take just a little bit of white, and notice how I'm going on the edge of my pile so that I don't taint the whole pile with that yellow. Okay, just a little bit of white because we don't want a real peachy color. We do want this to be a pretty bright orange. All right, so I have a nice pumpkin orange here. I'm gonna add a little bit more red to mine just to make it a little bit darker. And everyone's gonna have a different color orange. All right, don't make your paint pile too big though, because you do wanna be able to have enough to paint the whole background. All right, once you have the orange that you're happy with, you can go to your painting. Now, if you would like to outline the fox with your little brush, you absolutely can do that. But otherwise, we're just gonna use our big brush to paint all around the fox. Around the fox and around the apple. We're gonna draw in those acorns later, so don't worry about skipping a space for them. We'll just draw those on top of our orange. If your orange looks a little streaky, you can add just a tiny bit of white. That will help. Or you can just give yourself a second coat when you're ready. Now for some of this, you may want to switch to your little brush, like getting around these little ears and his face. That's totally fine. Feel free to do that. I may add a little more color on here. How are you doing, Andrew?
Good.
Okay. And guys, take your time. If we paint faster than you are painting, feel free to just stop the video and restart it when you're all set. I'm going around his little feet. Now I'm gonna come up. If you paint over those leaves, we can always draw those back on. I know it's hard to get around all those little spots. And if you didn't put too much white in your orange, if you paint over them, you'll probably still be able to see the outline anyway. So don't worry if your orange gets into your leaves or even your apple a little bit. If you have any brush marks that you're trying to get rid of, just make one long brush stroke. I'm just adding a little more orange in a couple places where it looked a little bit washed out, like maybe I had a little more of the yellow orange color rather than that darker orange. Looking good, Andrew. And when you're all finished with the orange, you can go ahead and rinse your brush. All right, I'm gonna take my little brush for the next step, but I'm gonna give you a minute or two more because Andrew is filling in his background and he is doing a really good job on that. So by the time you're watching this, it's October. So what is everyone going to be for Halloween? Any good costumes this year? All right, while Andrew finishes up his background, I'm just gonna talk to you a little bit about how we're gonna paint this fox. The first thing that I wanna do is the white parts, because before our water gets murky and our white gets tainted, we're gonna go ahead and paint the tip of his tail, the part of his face that's white, and then this fur around his collar. Then we're gonna start skipping around a little bit to let one place dry. So we'll be making some of those different browns, and then eventually the last thing we'll do for the fox will be his eyes and his nose. So don't worry about painting those or leaving a space for those. Let's just use straight white. I know your canvas is white, but this makes it just a little bit brighter. You can go right up to the line and even over that pencil line. Go ahead and fill in the face with just straight white. And then also the end of his tail. Now, if you got any orange in the part of the tail that should be white, as long as it's dry, you should be able to paint right over it. You can see I got a little bit of orange in there, but I'm just gonna paint right over it with the white. And even if it's dark, the white should cover it up. You might need 2 coats, but white will cover that orange color. So, if you wanna clean up the edges of the face or the edges of the tail where you may have gotten some orange in there, the white should do the trick. And then as you come down and do that fur that's under his chin, don't worry too much about the edge because we're gonna outline that with the darker brown. So just kind of make sure you fill that all in, and then we'll come back and tidy that up. All right, good job. You want to make sure when you're putting this white on that you are moving the paint around. You don't want any blobs on your canvas, so make sure it gets smooth. Smooth it out. Very nice. Oh, good. Did you already do the white, Andrew? Oh, okay, great. Now you're just finishing up the background. Okay, very good. All right, the next color, you didn't do the tail yet. Okay, that's fine. Just finish up your background. All right, I'm going to mix one color that we're going to need, and I'll just use my little brush because we don't need a huge amount of this, but I'm going to take a scoop of white and then a scoop of brown. I'm going to mix those together. Don't worry about this, Andrew. You finish your background, and then we can both use some of this color. All right, so this is going to be the lighter tint. When you add white to a color, it's called a tint. So this is going to be the tint of the brown. And I'm going to scoop some of my color onto Andrew's plate so that he has some to use too, because I have a lot. All right, and then with my little brush, I'm going to come up to the fox and I'm going to do around the apple. So this is his body color, this lighter brown. And yours doesn't have to be this light. If you want it to be a little darker, that's fine. We just want to have two different colors in the body, and then even the outline's going to be just a little bit darker. So I'm going to go around the apple, fill in his body. My color looks really light. I might actually put a little bit more of that red brown in there. Let me just grab a little dab. I don't want him to look too pinkish, you know? Okay, let's see. Is that better? A little bit better. And when you're right up against that fur that's underneath his chin, those are just pointy little triangles. So you can make little triangles, or the one side of a triangle that might have that pointy edge to it. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to fill in the rest of his head. So everything that we didn't color white, you're going to go ahead and fill in with this light color, and we'll come back and do the center of his ears with the darker color. But for right now, let's just go ahead and fill in the rest of his head. If you want to make your fox a little bit more orangey, you can certainly do that too, because some foxes have that orange color. How are you doing, Andrew?
Good.
If you want to make your fox look a little bit furry, you can always put some shorter strokes in. I just added a little bit more brown, you don't have to do this, to my mixture. And there's not a big difference, but I'm just adding some shorter brush strokes in. Since your paint is wet, if you just want to even put some straight brown in there, especially just right around his nose, you could bring some short strokes down. Just give him a little bit of texture. You can just see like a little bit of texture. If I grab just a little bit of brown on my brush. That's up to you. And then when you're all finished with that color, you can rinse your brush. And we are going to use straight brown, the red brown that you have. It's called Burnt Sienna. So straight from the palette with your little brush, and we're going to fill in the legs and the tail. So, oh, you know what? I actually need a little bit more of that light color right in between. There's a little tiny bit of his body in between his legs. I'll come back for that. That's the lighter color, but right now I'm just using the straight burnt sienna or brown that you have, and I'm going to fill in his legs and then the bottom of his tail. His paws are going to be black, or you can make them a very dark brown. So this is the bottom of his tail. And if you want this color to be a little bit darker, you can add a tiny bit of black to a scoop of this brown. That's really what we're going to do for the outline, but if you want to make this a little bit darker, you certainly can do that by adding just a little bit of black, and then when we do the outline, you can add a little bit more black to that color. I'm just tracing the triangular parts of the tail, and then I'll fill it in. All right. Ooh, Andrew, very nice. Wow, you got ahead of me somehow. All right, so now that we have the legs and the bottom of the tail filled in, I don't really need to rinse my brush, but I'm gonna go back to that very light color, and I'm just gonna go probably just 1 or 2 brush strokes down in between those legs, because we can see a little bit more of his tummy. His legs are in front of his tummy or body, so that's why there's just a little bit of that color in between those two. All right, and let's move away from the fox and let him dry just a little bit, and we are gonna paint in that apple. But before we do, rinse your brush. We're gonna mix a scoop of red, so that's with our little brush because we don't need much. We're gonna take a scoop of red and just, go ahead, scoop of red to your mixing plate. Just a tiny touch of black, just a little bit. We do not need a lot. Black will make a big difference, and this is just a darker red or almost a maroon color that we're gonna use as a highlight. So once you have that, you can rinse your brush. Very good, Andrew, that's perfect. You don't want too much black or it'll just overpower the red. So that's a great color. Yours looks like mine. All right, so once that's all mixed, you wanna rinse, and we're going to, go ahead and rinse your brush. And we're gonna use straight red. That's the first color we're gonna put on the apple. Okay, so we're just gonna fill in the apple red. Okay, take your time when you're up next to the fox. This is a good time to redraw that apple. The apple is sitting in front of the fox, so you should have the true shape of the apple. If you actually painted over the apple a little bit, then go ahead and use this red color. And when we get to the darker red, use the darker red to paint the shape of the apple over top of the fox's leg, because the apple is sitting next to, but also in front of the fox. All right, so we've got our red on there, just straight red. Very good, Andrew. All right, perfect. Now you don't need to rinse. You can just dip right into that darker red color, and we're just gonna add a few brush strokes in, mostly to the left-hand side of the apple. You can put a little bit in the right, but basically you're just darkening up that left-hand side of the apple. Red does cause some streakiness, so you may need to work on those brush strokes a little bit so it doesn't look too streaky. All right, so I have put the darker color into the left-hand side, furthest from the fox, left-hand side of the apple. If you want to use your finger to blend that into, that's fine. Your red should be still wet, so it should be blending in pretty nicely. If it gets really dark, then what you can do is just let it dry and paint straight red over top, and that'll brighten it back up again. Okay, but it does need to be dry, because if you put straight red in, right now it's just gonna mix in with the dark and it'll still stay dark. So if your apple looks like a poison apple, let it dry and then use straight red and paint over it again. All right, I'm gonna rinse my brush because I'm finished with the red color. Rinse that out really well, and let's make a little bit of green. So we're going to take a scoop of yellow. I'm gonna take about a half scoop of blue. And actually, I'm gonna mix those two up. I am probably gonna add a little bit of white into this. If you would like a darker green than this, you can add some more blue. And you could probably just use that darker green. It depends on how dark your orange is, because we are gonna use this green to color over our orange. So if your orange is really dark, then you're probably gonna need to add a little bit of white into your green. That's my green right now. Yeah, you can probably make a little bit more green, Andrew. Just put a little more blue in or a little more yellow plus blue. I'm gonna add just a little bit of white to part of my green in case it does not go over my orange very well. Okay. How's your green look, bud? Good? Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do with our green is we're gonna carefully fill in, oops, I just used the wrong green. Carefully fill in the leaves on the apple. Now, we left the leaves open, most likely, so you should be able to just paint right over them. If you have a little bit of orange in your leaves, you may want to use the white, the green that has a little bit of white in there, or you may want to use both of those colors anyway, because you could have more than one color in your leaves. Okay, and then with the green that has white in it, and I may put just a little bit more white, we're going to come next to the fox, and we're just going to give him a little bit of grass there. Let me just put a little bit more white in my green here. Okay. So next to the apple on both sides, and these are short little strokes. You can see I am pulling up and away. So I'm starting at the base of the blade of grass, and I'm just pulling up and away from the canvas. You can see there's a little bit of grass on both sides of the apple, and I can put different color greens in there too. So it doesn't have to be all the same green. If you want to put a little bit of the darker green in there, you can. And if you want to wait and put that in a couple minutes, you can also do that. So I could see that it blended in here, so what I might need to do is just wait and put that darker green on top. All right, I'm going to use this green that has the white in it to draw on top of my orange. All right, these are gonna be our acorns. You ready to draw these acorns, Andrew? All right, so we're in this top corner right here. And the acorn in front, we're gonna draw a little letter U. Okay? And then actually draw a line across the top and fill that in. So the letter U, and then draw a line across the top to fill it in. Very good, Andrew. And you actually already did this, so you don't need to do it, but you're gonna put just a little dab at the very center bottom. And that's, you know, on acorns where it has that pointy bottom, that's your pointy bottom. All right, so that's our first acorn. Then the second one is going to be the letter U, but it's not gonna be a full U, it's just gonna hit into our first acorn. So you're gonna come off to the left just a little. You may wanna tilt your brush. This is a kind of on a diagonal to the one that's straight on. And then you're gonna draw another U, somewhat on its side. You could think of it as a U kind of tipping in. I'm gonna draw the line across the top, fill it in, and then I'm gonna put that little tiny point in the very center. So those are the bottoms of my acorns. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. I might put a little more green on there because they are not showing up great. There we go, that's a little brighter, right? Okay, so that's the bottom of my acorns. I'm gonna come back to that when I put the tops on. All right, let's go back to our fox. I'm gonna rinse my brush. Okay, and we are gonna make a dark brown. This is gonna be our outline and the ears. Okay, so rinse your brush. Take a scoop of brown. You don't have to outline your fox. If you're with me and you wanna outline, take a scoop of brown and just a little bit of black, just a very little bit of black. Okay, we're gonna mix that in and it's gonna darken up our brown. Andrew, you may want to mix this color for the ears though. This is going to be the color for the triangle in the ears. So it's a little bit darker brown. I might put a little more black in there. Yeah, mix that together on your plate. And then you're going to come up and right in the center of each ear, you're going to draw a little triangle. You can, they don't have to have real pointy edges on them. They can actually have rounded edges on the triangle. But you're gonna draw a triangle in the middle of each ear. Okay, I am actually gonna add a little more black to my brown because it didn't end up looking as dark as I thought it was going to on the canvas. So I'm just adding a little more black in there. And now I'm just gonna paint right over what I just have. That's better. Okay. The next thing I'm gonna do with that color, if you want to, is just give each left side towards the apple an outline. This can help you clean up the legs on your fox if you went outside the lines a little bit, or if you just wanna sort of outline, you can outline the tail with this color. This gives it a nice separation if some of the orange got in your tail. And then I'm also gonna do these little diagonals across the tail. If you don't want to do all of them, you certainly don't have to. Okay. And then I'm going to also do real lightly the white fur. And I'm actually not following the lines there. All I'm doing is just making little V's, or little bottoms of the triangle. So see how I'm just making a V? If you can make this part a little bit curvy, or you can continue with the V's. Okay? And then I'm gonna outline the top of his head and maybe part of his ear. If you would like to outline the entire fox, you can absolutely do that. Especially if you kind of went out of the lines a little bit and you want to clean that up. An outline is a great way to clean up your edges. So that's up to you. Like Andrew said, he didn't want to do the outline. That's completely fine. Okay, I'm not gonna rinse my brush. I'm just gonna dip into black. And I'm gonna fill in those little circles, his paws. They can be black completely, or they can be black with just that little bit of brown in them. And if you painted over them for some reason, they're basically just ovals on their sides. You can make them a circle or kind of an oval. These look a little more like an oval. All right, same thing up here with this color. I'm not rinsing my brush. You can use black completely if you want to. I'm going to just fill in his nose, triangle. And then for his eye, I'm actually gonna use the back of the brush. And this I am just gonna use black. And on either side, I'm just gonna draw a little circle. If you use the big brush, it's a nice size circle. This little brush, I'm actually just drawing a little circle there. Okay. All right. Actually, I make his eyes a little bit bigger, All right, couple more things on this guy. We're almost done. Okay, if you use the back of the brush, remember to wipe it off because you don't want to grab it and then get black all over your hands. So I'm just wiping that off, okay? And then with that dark brown color, I'm gonna draw the top of my acorns. All right, so we have this U that we filled in, right? So we're just going to draw a line across the top, and it's going to be a little bit longer than the U, and then we're going to do a half circle. That's his little cap, okay? And also a little line at the top. So that's the top of the acorn, and on this one, I'm just going to do half circle, fill that in, and I've got the little top there. So those are the tops of my acorns. And if you have a real light pressure and a real pointy brush, you can outline those acorns with the brown. That kind of gives them a nice separation. All right. Last thing with this brown, we need a little stem on our apple, so come right in between the leaves and just give yourself a little stem on your apple with the brown. Those look great, bud. Very nice, Andrew, very nice. And then rinse your brush because we're done with the brown. All right, time for some swirls. These can be clouds, these can be just decoration. I'm just dipping the point of my brush in the white. And I'm gonna make a lowercase letter E. Check this out, just a lowercase letter E, and then a backwards E. And you can do this as many times as you want. You can just do a little curly Q if you want. It's up to you. Okay, but basically it's the letter E and a backwards letter E. And you're just kind of going back and forth between those. So you've got a little bit under the acorns. You've got something in this upper left-hand corner. If you want to do a little bit more right over top of the fox's head, you can. And then in the example, you've got a little something right here over top of the apple. And again, I'm just drawing very loose lowercase e's. All right, last thing is a swipe, just a real light swipe on the side of the apple, and a little bit of the dot, a little bit of white in each eye. I'm gonna use the back of the brush to just touch. My black is still wet there, but if I'm careful, I can just touch a little white in there and he'll be all set. All right, and my fox is complete. I hope you enjoyed painting with us. You can stop this video and take a little break, and we're gonna come back with the jack-o'-lantern, and then you can paint your cookies too.